Hey gamers, today we're going to look at Bruxelles 1893. Let's check it out. Now there's a lot of setup in this game here, but it's fairly simple. Each player is going to take their own little player board of their color. They're going to start with these building tiles that they're placed over the front here. They'll all have 6 to build. They'll have one of these markers here on the architect track, another marker on the score track, another marker on these 2 tracks as well. You're also going to start with one random piece of art. There are 4 different colors here. They'll just start with one of them. The rest will be put into a pile over here to the side. Plus there's some black art that is not included in that pile, would be over to the side here. You have your pile of resources here, and then your wild card resources here. Of course, that can represent any of these tokens here. You'll have your exhibition tokens right here. You'll have your little building clock. I don't know what else they call it here. I can't remember, but you'll set it up. These little tokens are different, so you can mix them up and throw them around. This is your little art tracker here. It goes right there in the middle there. You're going to deal out these gentleman's deck and deal out 4 of these cards here. You're going to shuffle this deck as well, this yellow deck here, and deal out 4 right here on the bottom of this. Now this little track here, these are individual tracks that are both double-sided as well, so you can flip them around and shuffle them any way you want to set up your start game. You'll also have a stock market track here that you will start by flipping over the first one, and whatever you do, depending on the number of players you have, that determines where you're going to put this little graph here. Now what basically this is saying is it lets you place it in 2 spots. So let's say I was playing a 3-player game. I can go on the 1 or the 3 or the 3 and the 1. If you look, there are numbers over here to the side and here at the bottom. So the 3 and the 1 would be right there on the corner. Now you want to get to where it gets the biggest area available, meaning players can only play in areas going that way or this way, anywhere in between. Or I could go on the 1 and the 3, which would be here and here, and I could shoot up that way. Now what I could not do is like, okay, 1 and 3, those are the only 3 choices we have. You couldn't do that. You'd have to put it on the one that has the most choices, which would be that one, or on the opposite, right over there. So you're not always going to play all of those areas. They're not always going to be open in the game, but some of them will, and you'll be able to play in those specific areas. You'll start with 5 workers of your color and 2 workers in the capital here, which basically we all call the jail cell. One player will get the little pissing boy. He is the start player token. They'll also get this George Brugman card, which will give you $5 once tapped. Speaking of money, first player gets $5, second player gets 6, next player gets 7, so on and so forth. Now that we're done with setup, what you're going to do after flipping over the stock market card and rearranging first players, putting where they want the available area spaces to be, then you're ready to take actions. There's several actions you can take, including passing. Yeah, you can just go ahead and just pass and just give up completely. Passing would actually get one of these little exhibition tokens. Only the first person to pass would get one, and then they would collect $1 for this and $1 for any art of different colors that they have. So if they had 3 of those colors art, they get $1 for each and $1 for this. Now after that, every other player who passes will not get an exhibition token, but they will get money, coin, for any individual art that they own, that being $1. Now the thing that's significant about this, grabbing this token, I will explain later. But this is also the round counter here, because it will only go X amount of rounds. So there are exhibition tokens. Other actions they can do is play on one of these 4 buildings. Now the rule is when someone plays here the first time, the next player must play 2 meeples to use that action, and then the third player must use 3 meeples, and so on and so forth. But in a nutshell, what do each one of these mean? Well, this one gives you 3 wild resources, which helps in building buildings. What this one does, it gives you as much money that there is on the stock market card. In our example here, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a 7 coin here. So the player would receive 7 coin, and so would the next player if they were to play here too. There's no penalty except for playing that extra meeple. The third building here lets you take an action on the other player board without having to pay a meeple there. So if some of these actions are blocked that you want to do, because each color represents different actions, you can go to this building here and take that action at no extra cost. Over here, it will let you reactivate some of your cards. When you use some of your gentleman cards that you have received in the game, and I'll just peel back here so you can see some of these other cards. If you've used some of these, but you've kept them with you, a way to untap them would be to go here, and then you can use X amount, depending on where you are on this track. So for instance, on the first stage, everyone can only activate just one. But there are ways to get up this track, and after a while you can activate four different types of cards you have in your possession. Or the maximum would be 7, but that'd be a lot there. Anyway, how this works is when playing on the buildings, whoever has the most amount here, and let's say blue has the most amount, that player is taking one of their meeples at the end of the round down to the courthouse, meaning that anyone here would not be able to be played in the game. They'd have to stay there unless they're freed by a card or action. Now, if there was a tie like there is here, let's say now, if there was a tie, then both players who had the most would move people into the little courthouse here. So you can see after a while, a lot of your players are going to be locked out if you keep taking some of these actions, because they are pretty powerful actions. And again, there are ways to get them out of the courthouse, which I'll explain later. Now let's go over to the main board here where you can do a live reactions. Remember, wherever this graph is, you can only play in that area. Of course, each color represents something different you can do in the game. Every time a player places someone there, they have to place some money too. At least 1 coin is the bare minimum, and I'll explain what that means in a moment. So you can place 1 coin or more if you wanted to, and then you could take that action. The actions are fairly simple. The pink actions let you dig through the pile face down, well basically you just choose face down from the pile of art, and you select 1 piece of art. What the yellow token does, it lets you sell that art, and this is really cool how they get you to sell the art here. If you look here at the art value track there, you see we have all the colors, even black, that's representing the symbol. So let's say that I wanted to sell this yellow piece of art. You can sell up to 2 pieces of art. What you do is just place it here and here. Now you can't sell some piece of art that's previously been sold, so if there's a yellow there, I couldn't sell my yellow again, but I could sell the pink as well. Now whenever you sell something, you will move this square over or up 1. And as you see, up and down can give you the amount of coin that you can get, and then left and right can give you the amount of victory points you'll get. So if I'm selling pink, I may want to go up like this and get 4 coins and 2 victory points, or instead only get 2 coins but get 4 victory points. Now once you do that, it stays there. So you can basically impact the value of your art. So if you were to reach one of these 4 quarters here, that'd be awesome for whatever color that is on the corner there, because you can get a lot of money and a lot of victory points that way. So that's what yellow means. Pink is buying art, yellow is selling. Blue will let you purchase a character card. And so you'll go down here and you'll get to purchase one of these character cards. Now the first one's free, and that you have to pay 1, 2, or 3 coin. Once one is bought, they are all shuffled down and a new one is brought out. At the end of the round, if no one took the 0, it is booted out, and then they're all shuffled down again. Now the thing about character cards is you have 2 options when receiving them. One, you can just take that action and then remove them from your hand if you don't want to. This action would basically just bump me up 1 on this red track here, which I'll get to what that means in a moment. But if I wanted to keep him, I'd keep him and then tap him out. And later on, as you remember, I could go over and perform this action to use his ability again and to move up the red track again if I wanted to. Now, once you make that decision where to keep him or discard him, if you keep him, you have to keep him. You can't discard him later on, because at the end of the game, you have to pay his salary, which in this case is 3 coin. And for every character card that you have in your hand that you cannot afford the salary for, you're getting minus 5 victory points at the end of the game. So that's important when you're getting characters. Of course, you can get as many characters as you want as long as you can afford them. So Again, to summarize, pink, buy art. Yellow, sell art. Blue, get a character card. The other two are very simple too. This orange or brown here is basically gather 2 resources. You can get any of the 3 types of resources that there are in the game. I can't remember, I think this is iron, this is wood, and this is stone, I don't know. But anyway, you can get any one of these 2 resources for playing there. Now, building would be, of course, the green area here. And when you're building, you will get to build one of the buildings that are here on your tile here. What you do is you would pay the cost, whatever that is. How would you know? Well, you have this little building dial up here. And what it does is show you what resources you have to use this turn. So for instance, I have to use brown and black. I can't use my blue this round. Now every time you finish building a building, you will move one of these hands over one. So for instance, if I move that one there, I had to do one brown and then the other one could be of any, resource I wanted to. Or if I moved it here, it could be, let's say it would have to be in here. Let's do this. It would have to be 3 coin and nothing else. That's the only resources using spending money. Or here, they have to be all blue because there is nothing else over there. So it will always change. After someone builds something, they're going to move one of these hands. Now, the only rule is they can't both meet together, obviously. All right, so how would you know how many you have to use, how many pieces of resource? Well, your building, your little player board will tell you here. The first 2 buildings only cost 2 resources, whatever those resources are, according to the dial. The next 2 cost 3 resources, and the last one costs 4 resources. However, when you're building these, you're also getting 5 victory points each if you can build them all. And at the end of the game, you'll be multiplying the number of buildings that you've built times the number on your architect track, which everyone starts at 3, but in the game, there are ways to move up that track. So 10 times 6 would be worth 60 points at the end of the game if you can get up that high, which I have seen people do. Now, if you look on the back of these building tiles, you'll see they have the steps here. Hey, pay your resources. If you didn't use any wild, remember whites are wild, they represent anything. But if you didn't build anything using white cubes, you'll get a bonus 5 victory points. Then you'll move one of those 2 hands on the dial that I talked about earlier, and then of course place your building on the board. So what would you do? Well, you'd take this building and then you would place it anywhere you wanted to on this board. Doesn't even have to be in this area. I could put it here if I wanted to. Now, once you do that, you will also get a bonus if anyone besides you lands on that action. So for instance, let's say I just moved it over here. All right, and another player had to take that action. Well, they're going to get that character card that they wanted, but me, because they did that, they'll let me reuse, I can untap and reuse one of the character cards in my hand. If my building was here on yellow and orange made a sale, then for every piece of art that he sold, I would get a victory point. If pink has art, he will get a piece of art, but I will get a black piece of art, which is an additional color in the game that you can only get if you have a building on art. If the building is on the orange space here and a player plays on there, they'll get 2 resources, you will get 1. And if you place it on a green space and a player played it there, they get to build a building, but you get victory points for every building you have on the board, which in this case, I'd only get 1, but as you know, it can be up to 5 or 6 victory points there. So depending on where you have your building, it doesn't block actions from other players, it just enables you to get a little bit of kickback, a little bit of benefit when other players use your buildings. Now, I forgot to mention this when getting art. The exhibition tile, if someone does have an exhibition tile and they're getting art, they can get up to 2 or however many pieces of art as they have exhibition tiles and look at them and keep 1. The significance of that is you do want different colors of art to score some extra coin there, because coin, of course, is tight in the game. And speaking of, let's say at the end of the round, players have played all their coin out across the board here. So here's an example here. What you're going to do is you're going to go down the aisles here, and the person who has the biggest bid will win these cards down below. Now, of course, they couldn't use this aisle, so this card's automatically out. And this aisle here, back here, I won it, so I will get the card. And there's 2 things I can do with this card. I can A, take the actions, which would move me up 2 on that black track I talked about earlier, the one up here that lets you retap and use use some of your character cards, or I could turn to the side and tuck it underneath my player board under one of these 4 in-game bonus scoring realms, because you can get bonuses on extra men you have available, on art cards, on character cards, and on coin. And it's always 1 victory point for each, but if you're tucking these, that's 2 extra victory points, which would triple my score. But you have to do one or the other. You can't do both. Here, no one won it, so that one's excluded. These icons will free one of the men from your jail. So if someone had won this, let's say blue had won this, they could free one of their blue guys and get him out with this card. Or tuck it and get the extra victory point at the end of the game. Now here, as you see, orange paid 2 coins, blue paid 1. So blue and orange, they'll all lose their coin. Any coin bid, even if they didn't win it, is lost in the game, and orange would get that card. Here there's a tie, 1 and 1. In the case of a tie, all players would share the reward, but no one would be able to keep the card. And that's significant, not only because if it was this one, they would have gotten some extra victory points they could have tucked in instead of using the action, but also you see these little ping boys here. Some of these cards have the little ping boy icon on them, which is going to go into who has the most of these will be first player for the next round. And by the way, whoever grabbed that exhibition token will also start with 2 ping boy tokens. So if one player won this and the other player won this one, the player with the 3 ping boy tokens would be first player. So it also determines who first player is going to be as well. And that's only if you can keep the card. If you get to use the action, you don't get any of the ping boys. Can't believe I keep having to say ping boy in this video. But you don't get any of their points to go toward your first player. And those aren't accumulative. After that round, it starts over again. Whoever gets the most cards to that next round will be first player again. So at the end of the round, what you're going to be doing is refilling the character cards. These bonus cards here, you're going to take all of your pawns up. You're going to leave any of the buildings there. The buildings will stay there for the end of the game. Of course, any money is discarded. You're also going to flip over, discard this one, and flip over a new stock market token, and then that person is going to rearrange the little graph on the board, whoever first player, the new first player is, and then you will start again. And you'll keep going through that until all these exhibition tokens are taken. At the end of the game, final scoring will be adding up any of the points that you have on the architect track and any in-game points you have on your player board. And as I'm talking about this, I forgot about another way to score points every round is through these red icons on the board here. As you see, we have these red icons here, and if players had played, let's go back to my other example here, like this, what would happen is for every person who is surrounded by one of these red emblems. So this one's not surrounded, it has 3, but the building didn't count as a person, so it wouldn't count. This one's all packed, so this one would count for majority. This one would count as majority since all it's surrounded, and this one would count as majority. Well, this one will give you victory points according to where you are on the chart. So for instance, blue has 3, orange has 1. Blue would receive 2 victory points. Over here, the same thing would happen. Blue has the majority, they get 2 victory points. If it's shared, then both players will get victory points wherever they are on this scale. And this scale can go to 4 victory points. Again, at the end of the game, you're adding up your building, your architect track here, where you are on the architect track and how many buildings you have. And then, of course, any of the in-game points here at the bottom. And whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. Final thoughts, what do I think about the game? Well, a friend of mine who watches this channel, this is one of the first games he suggested I get. So I went online, I bought a copy, and unfortunately I bought it with a pre-order that didn't come out till later on this summer. So now I'm finally getting around to playing it, so now I can review it, and I can safely say this is a great game. It's a really fun game. At first, the rules can be a little overwhelming. Every time we played it with new people, they're like, their eyes glaze over when I'm telling the rules. They're going, okay, let's play a few rounds, let's see if I can get it. After the second round, you could see light bulbs going on, like, okay, and then they start moving. So definitely you need to play about twice to get, you know, in the hang of it and everything. But other than that, I think it's just a phenomenal game. I think there's a lot going on with it. It is enjoyable, and my gaming group enjoyed it. Now, should you get it? Well, hopefully this is still in print. I got one of the last copies that were online at one of the stores. I don't see it online anymore. Now, I know they're coming out with a card game. I have zero interest in the card game because I don't like card games. But for the regular board game, yes, I think it's well worth it. I think there's a lot of variety in there to switch up the game, so the games will be always different, that modular board moving around. So for me, yeah, it's definitely worth your time. All right, gamers, that's it for now. Until then, game on.